When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, the profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hey everybody, this is David Uosikkinen, and you're with Jonathan Steele on Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest certainly has some local ties to me and has been around the music business for so many years. But the local ties have to do with 2 local bands he is involved with for me. And like I said, he's been around the music scene for professionally over 40 years. God bless him for it. He is the drummer for a band called the Hooters, which started 80-81 and got their promotion because of first being played on one of the initial rock stations across the country and well respected in WMMR. He also has a side project as well called In the Pocket, which covers everything from a lot of the music of the Philadelphia area. But we'll get into all that and more. Let's welcome drummer, legendary guy, David Uosikkinen.
Hello.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
So, David, how are you? And how were the holidays for you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. The holidays were good. It was a different kind of holiday. You're in Orlando, correct?
No, I am in South Jersey.
Oh, okay. So then you're aware of Pierre Robert.
I was going to go there, but
Yeah. Our friend, he not only was a Philadelphia icon. Everybody knew him, loved him, but he was a big part of our family, like a brother and sister with my wife, Dallin. So, I mean, I think they've spent over the last 40 years together at holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and with me, it's been the last 16. So this holiday was a little challenging. We decided we didn't stay home. We went to New York. We were in Soho over the Christmas holiday, and we just came back actually on Christmas Day. Took my mother-in-law out to dinner, but it was a little challenging because of we just had our routine every holiday with him and our friends that we always got together with. So it was a little bit challenging, but at the end of the day, we got through it, and listen, at the point of my life, I'm turning 70 this year, and I realize that, every day, Warren Zevon said it best: enjoy every sandwich, and when you lose a friend like Pierre, it really becomes even more aware about how important life is, and every day is to enjoy it, and don't sweat the small stuff, it's just really too important to enjoy every moment that you can, especially with family and friends. So, but long story short, yeah, we got through the holidays. We knew that it would be a little difficult this year, and so we're into 2026. How about yours?
Quiet, which I like, but
there you go. Good.
But yeah, I want to talk a little more about Pierre if we can, because
Sure.
I knew him a little bit.
Yeah,
he's on with us before. I got to record in the famous Studio R with him, which was awesome. And,
Excellent. Great man.
Being I was born and raised in this area, like you said, went to Orlando for a bit, came back.
Yeah.
But there was just something special whenever you ran into the man and all that fun. I jokingly say he was the last living hippie.
Well, the thing that, Jonathan, the thing about Pierre was that he really, really, literally had time for everyone. My wife went to a lot of shows with him. I went to a few shows with him, but he would take time out to, if somebody wanted to speak with him, he spoke with them, spent time with them. He never rock starred anybody, he was just that guy, just a really great human being. And you're right, he was a hippie, but he liked his clothes, he liked to look good, and he had style, and he had panache, as they say. So he greatly missed.
He's a different breed. That's for sure.
Indeed.
And I think if anything can be said positive, and especially with that man, he was certainly positive and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when the news came out of his passing, to see not just the local response to everybody taking that deep breath going, but it was everybody from the music business across all genres, whether it's Bon Jovi, Bruce, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and just like you guys, the Hooters. It was amazing to see the love and outpour that came out for him. So that didn't surprise me, but I did. I think that he would have been really blown away by the scope in which his passing created grief. I saw him on CBS Sunday mornings. They have this thing called In Memoriam, and they do this great piece where they show people that are well-known people, and they had him on there
And then he was on like TMZ, all those kinds of shows.
Howard Stern talked about him. And all that.
Howard Stern spoke about him glowingly, which was really beautiful. I think Pierre would have been really pleased, to say the least, because like anything else, I mean, he knew that people liked him, but there were times where, like anything else, he had his insecurities. He always questioned. He was with WMMR for as long as we've been, I think 82, 81, so many years. But there were times where he would talk about what would my life be like after WMMR, and he didn't like that idea. And the one thing that I'm grateful for anything is that he never had to experience that. Like anything, corporations make changes, and you see people that you're always surprised that they are no longer part of that corporation or that entity. Like good way to put it. And he talked about it because he saw some friends that had to leave the station, and he never had to experience that. I mean, he had to do some contract negotiations from time to time, and they were always really unpleasant for him. Fortunately, he had a good guy taking care of his stuff, but it was always really difficult for him. And so I'm grateful that he never had to experience the feeling of being told that you have to go, do what you do somewhere else, because he really did. And WMMR was a part of his DNA. He knew all the history. He knew, the one thing about Pierre that he took me and my wife out to Lake Tahoe to his place called Moon Dune, and he has a boat. And I was I was a little bit blown away about his navigational skills on that boat, because the guy was really, he was great. He loved it. And he had all, had all the safety things down, and he had us all prepared we were out on the boat with him for 6 hours on Lake Tahoe. And so I was really impressed by, and listen, he loved history and loved to tell stories. So, he got us all into, the whole Brat Pack thing, Lake Tahoe, Frank Sinatra's place. And he was a real sharp guy, a really sharp guy.
Absolutely. All right. So, yes, Pierre, you will be missed.
Yeah, indeed.
Where did you get the interest in drumming? Because I know your parents had interest in jazz and different things, because they came over here from Finland in the 50s, something like that?
1953. 52, my dad came over, my mom came over in 53. They got married over in Finland, and then my dad came over and sent for my mom. Back then, you were taking a boat to get over. I was born in 56, and my dad, who didn't play an instrument, there were tough times. He left Finland because he wanted to better his economic situation. And, it was way before Nokia and technology made Finland a powerhouse country. But so, it was post-war, and things were really tough going for a young guy. So he came over to the States. I had an aunt and uncle, a great aunt and uncle that lived in Manhattan, and they sponsored my mom and dad. My dad to come over, and then obviously he sent for my mom, but my dad came over, lived in New York, was a dishwasher for a year, and then I don't know how, but he ended up in Bristol at the soap factory, working there for a year with a bunch of Finnish guys. Levitt started building houses, I guess at 55, around 1955, and my dad went to work for him, and he offered a real great, it gave his workers a great offer to buy houses with like a low down payment. And so my dad bought a house there, and I grew up in Levittown, and like in the 60s, 1960, the 60s, 64 to like 68 were really pivotal years. And, television it was like when Kennedy, when he gets Nixon in the debate, and, if you listened to it, you thought, oh, Nixon did well. But if you saw it, you realize, you see the magnetism of John F. Kennedy and how he used the optics to, people were like, oh, look at this young, aggressive dude. And so things were changing. rapidly. And the Ed Sullivan Show. I don't know if you had a chance to see Jonathan, the documentary on Ed Sullivan's show. I think it's on Netflix. Man, it's incredible. And Ed Sullivan, would always have the cool bands even before they had Elvis Presley on, obviously in the late 50s, but the Beatles come rolling on to Ed Sullivan, and I think it was 1960. Was it 64 that they come, or early 60s? And I remember February 11th. Well, I should say, wait a minute, I was like 9 years old when they were on. So I was born in 1956. So it was a little bit after that. But I remember I had the flu, and the Beatles were going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I have two sisters, and I was like, the bed was spinning. And I remember the Beatles came on, and, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles. And they came on, and man, I was like, my world stopped. It was like I saw that. And I think, like a lot of people that saw the Beatles back then, it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to play the drums. I was like, I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be a band. I'd be in a band. I actually was really interested in the guitar, and it's weird. In my neighborhood, there was a kid. He had a guitar and a drum, and when I went over his house, he could play. I think he could play "Wipeout," "What I Say," and some of the solo guitar, and I could play a beat immediately. So how that goes. It's like I could play a beat, so it was like by default I became the drummer, and because I could do that, I just always stuck, and fortunately I liked it. I liked playing the drums, and so here I am. What is this thing? 2026. I'm still doing it.
Yeah,
I love it.
But with that being said, I know you had many different influences, and I actually just watched a documentary on you this morning as well.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
So, you had a little ska, and you had the reggae effect. Other influences along the way, like you said, the Beatles. Just as things move along.
Yeah.
When did you think that you actually had it? Like, okay, I got this. There's always learning, but okay, I think I got it figured out.
Yeah, well, interesting. You said different styles. I always prided myself once I started figuring out, like, even when I was younger in like high school, I remember playing with different guitar players and different guys putting bands together. Is that I remember, like, Led Zeppelin was happening, Humble Pie was happening, obviously the Stones. But I listened to a lot of soul music. I love James Brown. I love Otis Redding. So I was always really listening to, like, when Stax records started happening, Al Jackson on the drums. So I prided myself on playing different beats. And as far as knowing when I had it, I think when I felt a level of confidence was when I was in high school. There was a band in my neighborhood where I joined up with these guys, and they were a little older than me. And, in the neighborhood, they were the cool band. And after a little while, I end up being, they came to me actually to help them. Well, they asked me to basically manage what we were doing. And I think that's when I started feeling a confidence enough to know what I was seeing and doing. And I didn't know if necessarily I had it, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what we could be if we did what we needed to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Like if you do certain things and you look a certain way and you pay attention to certain things, you can have success. I always knew it. I remember, and God, I hope he doesn't see this, but the lead singer of the band, he had this habit of always taking his shoes off when we played. And I remember he would play in his socks. Now, if you wear your socks long enough, your socks would start hanging off your feet, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember he'd have a few drinks and he didn't really give a crap about it, and he used to drive me nuts. And I remember after one gig, I pulled him and I told the guys in the band, I said, if he can't put his shoes on, I'm not playing with him anymore. Especially if it didn't look cool, it was just really not cool. I just didn't think it was great. So, I was always thinking about, like, one, the music was really important, but the optics were important as well, when we were young. but I listen, and I was always, Jonathan, I was always, I was taking lessons. I remember, things that frustrated me that I couldn't do musically or skill wise. I tried to I sought out a teacher that can help me do it. Like I had lessons in my neighborhood with some really great drum teachers, but Buddy Ostapovich, Bill Weichel, guys like that. One real breaking point for me was when I went to New York and I studied with this guy, Joe Casadas. And he made things make sense to me in my head on certain things to do with your hands and your feet that I could never figure out. I would just like muscle my way through things before. And then all of a sudden he gave me ideas on how to get to where I wanted to get to playing. So confidence was always built by just, I guess it was more of like a brain thing of like, if I do this and I learn this and I practice this, I'll get there, Mm-hmm. And, but I was always big on that. I still do that,
Absolutely. Well, do you believe that the drummer is really the soul and power for the band and music itself? Because I always, I do a couple instruments myself, but it's like you need that something, I guess, to attach the music to.
Yeah. Like it's like you need a good track when you're writing a song. I mean, even if you have no drums on a song, that who was laying down the track, the guitar, the piano, it's gotta be great. It just has to have that thing. I think, it's been said, you can't have you can screw up the saying about having, you need a great drummer basically to have a successful band. I forget the old adage that people would say it's still early in the morning for me, but I believe that. I just think that, having a solid, backbeat is what it's all about. It's always been that for me growing up, listening to music. You listen to Ringo and Charlie and, or Al Jackson and Roger Hawkins, all those songs, those records that were made back in the day were all songs that really had a solid groove, and a distinctive groove. It was always something that was really important to the song. And I for one was always listening to that.
Absolutely. Well, as we move along, obviously, there was, you finish high school, you're playing a little bit still, things are moving along.
Yeah.
And you apparently met a couple guys from a band called Baby Grand named Rob and Eric.
Yeah.
I wonder whatever these
Life
guys
changing.
did. Yeah, I wonder what these guys ever did. But now I tease. So you get connected with these guys, and they said,
they were.
We want you to be in our band, the Hooters. That was forming.
Yeah, Jonathan, it was. They were. I don't need to use rock stars, but they were doing it in my eyes. I remember, knowing about Eric through my friend Carmen Rojas, who joined Baby Grand and played bass with them. And Carmine left that band and played with David Bowie and Rod Stewart, and he became one of the most famous bass players in the world. But I became aware of Baby Grand through Carmine. And so, Baby Grand was a band I would go see. And, and I remember getting that first record, and Rick Marotta was playing on that record. He recorded, he was the session guy. They had a lead singer back then. Eric and Rob were just doing the background vocals, a guy named David Kagan. I remember they had a great version of the old Left Bank song, which wasn't a Left Bank song. I forget who actually wrote it. It was called Walk Away, Renee. And they did that song. They were a band that really impressed me. And then the drummer that they got to play with them when they were out doing shows was a drummer that I really admire, a guy named David Prater, who now, he went on to produce Dream Theater and played with Santana, Brand X. And he was a real powerhouse drummer. I loved his playing. But they got signed. They were signed to Arista Records. And with a lot of bands, people don't realize you get a deal and things didn't work out for them as far as getting a real audience and getting out on tour. I think they did some shows. And so the band broke up, and they decided they wanted to do a new thing. And at that time, I was playing with a band called Hot Property. And that was a band of a lead singer from New York City, Heidi Lindner, who was really great, and a guy named John Kuzma and Bobby Woods, who later became the rhythm section in the Hooters. But I was playing with them, and we were playing at this little bar in New Jersey, and Eric and Rob came in, and I thought they were there looking for the lead singer, and it turned out they were looking for a drummer. And they invited me to cut some demos with them. And I went to their rehearsal place in Manayunk, Umbria Street. And I recorded 4 cover songs. Eric was he was auditioning for a film called, I think it was called The Idolmaker. Ray Sharkey ended up getting the part. But I remember I recorded Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. And Then She Kissed Me, a Badfinger song, and I can't remember which Badfinger song it was. And there was another song. And I remember I went in and I brought my drum set with me. I set up, we threw some mics up, and John Sr., our friend, was engineering on a 2-track machine in a truck. And he ran the snake into the room, which was upstairs. And the 3 of us cut those songs. And I was really, really intimidated, by them, because they were already, I knew their reputation. They were really nice. They were great. They weren't, they were super cool. But I knew what they've done, and I never did anything like that. So, although I was already recording, but they just seemed to really have this trajectory that was like, whoo, they were going somewhere. And so I recorded with them, and I went home, and a couple weeks later, I forget which one called me, but they invited me up to play with them, and asked them, we started just jamming like bands do, and it started hanging out, and they started asking me about Bobby and John, and next thing you know, I invited them to play in Hot Property, and we were the Hooters. It was that ska version of that band that you could look up on YouTube. You could see, videos of us playing Trouble in Paradise and Man in the Street and things like that, and people were going nuts, and they were skanking and doing that whole thing that we did back in the day. It was cool.
Yeah, and I think that song you were referencing earlier, Walk Away Renee, was I think that was a Left Bank's song from the mid '60s. So yes. Yeah, music's one of those weird things for me that I can.
There you go. Yeah. It's good though. It's good that you got that in your brain, because if you didn't, I think that music is just a real healer, man. It's really, really good, and. I look back at those times now, especially these days, coming up and just my experiences are things that I look back at with real fondness, man.
Absolutely. Can you talk about the scene of music in the Philadelphia region during those early stages of the Hooters founding? You had things, because obviously we will get to like In the Pocket and stuff where you bring a lot of these guys in, but you had the A's, you had you guys coming up. You also had the Philadelphia sound kind of going. You had so much going on at the time.
A lot. Yeah.
Can you talk about the music at that time period?
Yeah. And it's funny because there was no internet. I sometimes wonder how I guess the newspaper was where I was getting my information, and a lot of friends by phone. People would call, and you just find out things that were going on, and you'd hear this reputation. The really interesting thing for me, and I kind of when I look back, I'm going like it's almost cosmic. I became very close friends with a guy named T.J. Tyndall, who played on a lot of those Philly international songs. He had a band that I really loved called the Philly Frogs. And they kind of, they weren't really part of the Philly scene, but they get booked. Like Larry Maggot, the promoter, really liked them. So you'd see them playing at gigs on Delaware Avenue by the river and things like that in the summertime. I love that band because, Cotton Kent played keyboards, and there was Bobby Harnagle and TJ Tyndall and Jimmy Mahoney and Earl Scooter, Pip on bass, sometimes Charles Collins. They were a great band. And I kind of got off the beat, but talking about that band made me realize, like, TJ was like the first real working musician that I knew, working in a place that I would like to be doing. Like, he was recording original songs. I'd see him driving his green Grand Am Pontiac from New Hope. I'd pass him on the streets when I was already driving, and he'd be driving up to Sigma Sound to do sessions every day. And he was working, at least 3 days a week recording songs for Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. And then at night he'd come back, he'd be playing gigs in New Hope at John and Peters. That was one scene. There was like a thing going on there. And then there was this thing in Philadelphia, like I think for me, in like 1978, 79, and 80, it was when I started really becoming aware of the Philadelphia there was a bar that had bands, national, worldwide bands coming to play called the Hot Club. And, Brian Setzer had a band called the Brothers Pharaohs. They would play there. Indory and the Blockheads, I think, played there. Some semblance of that band. Elvis Costello played there. I think Nick Lowe played there. So it was like this funky club that this guy, David Carroll, had. Now, looking back, I think there were certain people that really made the scene happen. Like David Carroll was a real pomp. There should be a statue of that guy in Philly somewhere. He was really a guy that what we call a tastemaker in those at that time, because he was bringing in bands and he was promoting shows, and there was like this underground cool vibe about the dude. That was like 78, 79. I hope I'm getting my years right about that. And then there was like that English second wave, new wave punk thing happening. And this was even before the Hooters. It was really when the A's started, because I knew Richard Bush and Rick DeFonso and Rocco and Mikey Snyder and the band before they became the A's. They were a band called Sin, and they used to play bars and they play cover songs. And I'd go see them in New Jersey, and they were really a cool band. I think one day they probably realized that, look, man, we want to do more. And they started writing their own songs, but they really got into the punk thing. So, they were the first band that I would really see that kind of broke out. And I didn't know them really well, but I knew them enough to say hello, and I would go see them. I remember they got signed to, and they had managers too. That was the big deal. They had a couple managers that took care of them, booked them, and they had a reputation sometimes for getting fired in the middle of a gig.
You're fired!
Which back then was kind of cool. It was like, they wouldn't turn it down, so the club owner fired them, or they, for whatever reason, they weren't playing the right kind of music, they would fire them. But they were aggressive about what they wanted to do. The A's, the Reds, I remember, but the A's were the band that stuck out to me because they got signed to Clive Davis at Arista Records. And I remember I went to see him do a special show for and I'm going to get this wrong. What is it? Gray Whistle Stop. It was like you could look it up on YouTube, but they did a show from Sigma Sound years ago, and they did a couple of the songs from the album, and they invited about 100 people to go to the show, and I was one of the people that I went, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was such a great performance, and the band just rocked it, and they were great. Richard was like, he was like a modern day Frank Sinatra. He was just entertaining everybody. And he was kind of remind me of Ray Davies and Mick Jagger and David Johansen all wrapped up in one. But he was somebody I knew. He was really, really great. And then, so there was there was a scene there. And so we kind of piggybacked that, the Hooters, I should say, in the 80s when things started happening then. We got into the ska thing because the band loved Selector and the Specials, and bands that were playing live, that when you would go see a show, people were no longer just like sitting down to watch a show. They were coming in, they were part of the show. They were dancing, and they were, like later on it became moshing in the pit, but, dancing, and it was just a part of it. And so every one of our shows started to turn into that in the early 80s. But there was the Hooters, there was Robert Hazard and the Heroes, the A's. John Eddy had a band called John Eddy and the Front Street Runners. I'm sure I'm missing some of the bands, but they're the bands that I knew. I remember there was a band that was already pretty established from the mid 70s that Fran Smith played in called Johnny's Dance Band. That they were kind of did a little theatrical thing with Ann, but then they got a little more song oriented.
Yeah.
They were, but there was like this scene in the early 80s where bands were like record guys, they would never come to Philadelphia back in the day. You always had to put your band together, and you had to go to New York and, bring your people up to New York so a record exec could come see you and tell you whether or not you're worthy of being signed or not. But that changed in the 80s because Philadelphia became more of a music scene. Oh, and also I missed a big one too that was always an established guy in Philadelphia, was Ken Queter and the Secret Kids. I mean, Ken Queter had a thing going on, and he was a real rebel. I mean, I didn't see this firsthand, but like apparently there were label execs that wanted to sign him. If they said, if you could do this and if you could do that, and he was never willing to do what they wanted him to do. Like, cover somebody else's songs. Can you work with this person? And Kenny had a vision of what he wanted to do. And, that kind of bit him in the ass a little bit, because he was very, he had a direction in mind, and he didn't want to deviate from that. So, but he was a big part of the Philadelphia thing. Listen, I don't know if I talked enough about the Philly International thing, but that, Philadelphia, when I lived outside of Philly for about 20 years in Southern California. I mean, I was back here good 5-6 times a year, but when I was in California, people really just thought that Philadelphia was an R&B town or a Philly soul town. They really didn't recognize us for a lot of the rock things that were happening. Yeah. But there were bands that were rock starting to happen. In the mid 80s, even though, South Jersey had Cinderella, bands that were coming out of there that were, Cinderella became massive, and that was Tommy Kiefer and Freddie, and they were great.
Absolutely. And people don't realize, I should mention this. Obviously, when people talk music and the West Coast and stuff, you hear the troubadour and stuff.
Yeah.
We had, especially during this era that we were talking about, is we had South Street, still do, and it's TLA.
Randall's Lair.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, obviously you guys signed with Columbia in '84, all that stuff. And not just you guys, but the A's and everybody else in that era. You had guys like a young Pierre Robert coming in from San Francisco. You had a local, and people know the name Michael Tierson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Tierson's the very first person to ever play the Hooters.
Yes.
He played A Man in the Street on his Guerrilla Theater show on WMMR. Now talk about a rebel. Michael pissed everybody off,
Michael he
just was, and he was really the very first person to ever play the Hooters. And he knew that there was something special there. And God bless him. We're ever grateful to Michael for doing that.
Yeah, Michael's a different breed, that's for sure.
He definitely is, isn't he? For sure.
Now, I guess the first big thing you guys did, playing-wise, because it was all about playing the music in front of the people and stuff. You got to play big shows like for The Who in '82.
Yeah,
Live
that
Aid.
was massive. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that like being able to play these? You opened at Live Aid. So, to play these different venues with all these different famous musicians, what was that like for you guys and you specifically?
Yeah, well, the first one you mentioned opening for The Who. That seems, Jonathan, that seems to me like it's almost yesterday. I look back on that show. I remember it was a sunny day. First of all, I couldn't believe we were doing it. I was like, I can't believe we're opening for the Who at JFK Stadium for like, there were, 90,000 people. And, you show up and the day of the show and we're backstage and Mick Jagger comes walking backstage, who's not even playing, is with his daughter Jade. He's just hanging out. He wanted to come say hello. Our friend Larry Maggot brought him back, and we were just, our jaws dropped. It was like, oh my goodness. I mean, you don't want to be like, you had to have a certain level of cool, but you're at the same time you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I'm having a conversation with Mick Jagger. It was phenomenal, and that was amazing. Now the funny thing about that show was that we never even stayed to watch the Who. We had a gig that night in Richmond, Virginia, at the University of Richmond, and when the Who were hitting the stage, we were in a van going out the side exit of the stadium, and I remember sitting on the amplifiers in the back, looking at the Who walking up the ramp to go onto the stage, and for some reason we couldn't get out of the stadium so we could watch the very beginning of it. So I saw them play, and I saw Kenny Jones get behind the drums, and he had a gong. I remember seeing him sitting there. It was like a big gong, and he had the kit, and Pete was like tweaking his amp, and it was amazing. But we couldn't, because we were playing, we were working band. We had a gig, and we probably had a gig booked already, and then we were asked to open for the Who. And that show was the Who, Santana, the Clash. I'm sorry, the Hooters, Santana, the Clash, and the Who. That was the running order. And oh man, the trailer, like being backstage, it was just like, I remember thinking, oh, I want to do this. This is what I was meant to do. This is what I want to do. And I don't care what I got to do it, but this is what I want to do. And so we did that show. And I think after that show, we broke up for a little bit. We didn't like really break up, but we decided to take a little break because Eric and Rob went to work on Cindy's album in New York. And I started playing, just to keep playing with John and this guy, Joey Wilson, who, rest in peace, is no longer with us. We put a band together called Youth Camp. And we were together for about 9 months. And then when they came back, looking back, it was really kind of devastating because I felt like, oh, we were really doing great. But I just was too immature to realize this is just a part of the way things work sometimes. We needed to take a break from one another. Then we came back, and I remember Eric again called me up and said, hey, we're going to put the band together and we want to do some gigs. And we're really interested in this bass player that you have from Youth Camp, which was Rob Miller, who plays with Tommy Conwell now. And he was with the Hooters. So he joined up with us. And fortunately for us, Robert Hazard fired John Lilly. And John Lilly was in need of a gig. And we asked him to join up with us. So it was Rob Miller, John Lilly, myself, Eric, and Rob. And we started playing. And we got a little bit into, it was 1983, and we decided that we would make an album. We recorded a record called Amore. And that was the time we went into, we had a little bit of money saved, one of the guys, and the band financed the album. And we went into, and I think it might have been, I remember a number, $11,000 floating around, which was a shitload of money back then to us. But we decided that, I think Rob or Eric decided they're gonna pay for it. We went in, we recorded the record in, a couple weeks. We just went into the Studio 4 with Phil Niccolo, and we cut these tracks: Blood from a Stone, Amore, Hanging on a Heartbeat, Birdman, and that record sold like 100,000 copies. It was just unbelievable. And I think that was when we started really building we had a look, and, we were at that age where, I remember that's when they did this high school contest to win a concert with the Hooters.
MMR did it, yeah.
Yeah, we did it with WMMR. Our manager, Steve Mountain, at the time thought it would be a good idea if he worked it out with MMR, that they write on these 3x5 cards. I forget, WMMR rocks the Philadelphia, the Hooters, something like that. Had to write something like that. And they thought they were going to get like, I don't know, 50,000 cards or something. They got like millions, 25 million cards or some ridiculous amount of cards. So we ended up, one of the high schools won a concert. And then our manager at the time, booked us at all these other high schools. So we were like, we had a whole 6 months of playing every weekend at high school. We were gigging every weekend. We were working. We were playing a show, and it was brilliant. And that was when we were recording Nervous Night. And we recorded Nervous Night, and it just seemed like we had momentum. We were already playing, and we did the album, and it was like we were constantly going. And we did the album, and then that spring, Don Henley put out his record, which Down at the Sunset Grill, Boys of Summer, and we were asked to be his opening act on his tour. I remember, we flew to St. Louis. Actually, we drove to St. Louis. I remember getting a bus. It was the first time I was in a tour bus. We drove to St. Louis, and I remember going to see the Phillies. The Phillies were playing the Cardinals. I remember I went to a game at their stadium, and this is going to be cool. The stadium was the exact same stadium that we had in Philly. Nothing different. It was the exact. It was like it was like cookie cutter. I was like, might as well be in Philly. Yeah, Busch Stadium was exactly, except it was in the city right there. So we did this tour with Don Henley, and we got to be close friends with him on the road in his band. Ian Wallace was his drummer, was like a really great drummer. Jay Winding was playing keyboards, and they were just like an awesome band. We did that, and then from there we signed with a promoter named Frank Barcelona Premier, and we went out with Squeeze, and then we went out with Loverboy, and then we went out with Bryan Adams. We were always playing. We seemed to play a lot with a lot of Canadian bands, but we were on the road constantly. It felt like when we, after Nervous Night, we toured for 9 months, and then I got off the road. Then I went to rehab after that tour. I got, I had some personal issues with drugs, and I got off of it. But I remember I did that tour, and that was really tricky because I was, when you have that kind of problem and you're traveling, there's a whole new set of issues that become into play, and I had to address those. And then I came off a tour, and we recorded our second album, which in America was considered, we sold, I think a couple million records on the first record. The second record didn't sell as much. It still sold a lot of records. It still went gold. But when you're with a company like Columbia, it's always got to be going that way. But for us, we sold that's where we had Johnny B on the album and Satellite, and we had a hit in the UK, and we had a hit in Europe. So it's really when things started really ramping up for us around the world. Live Aid happened then. You asked me about that, and I'm sorry I didn't.
No, you're fine. We went around. We went around and about, but we got there. So
Live Aid was a total, over the years I've learned a little bit more how we become a part of Live Aid and how we got in there. I always thought it was Steve and Larry that got us on it, but apparently Larry Maggot tells this story that apparently Bill Graham was walking in the city, and somebody said, you should get this local band to open the show, a band called the Hooters, a band that would be great to open the show at Live Aid. And Bill went to Larry and said, hey, let's get this band, the Hooters, to open the show. And next thing you know, we opened that show, and the rest is history. It's funny. I just did the foreword for a book. Live Aid has created so many crazy things. There's a book that just came out. It's called, maybe you can look it up. It's called Live Aid Runaways. It's a fictional story about two kids that a guy named Shane Robitaille wrote the book. If you got 1 second, I can grab the book. Can I grab it?
Yeah,
let me grab it. Hold on 1 second.
I got the notes on it. I'll mention it here. This book that David is working came out last year, and I will put a link to this book where you can grab it. It's a novel.
Coming back, Jonathan.
So yeah, I will put a link to this.
I just got it yesterday, and so it was just sent to me yesterday. It's this. Here's the book, and if you can see it, it's called "Live Aid Runaways," a novel by Shane Robitaille.
Yes,
and I wrote the foreword.
I was just gonna,
cool.
As I was stating there, as you went to grab the book, I will put the link to grab the book and
cool.
contact. And it's funny, I got the website up as we speak.
Oh, nice.
And there's a picture of some guy I'm talking to right now behind a drum kit.
Right. I wrote the foreword.
Yeah,
that's me.
So
I mean, it was cool. I wrote it last year. The guy told me this idea he had for writing this fictional story about one kid. I mean, it's great though. It's make believe, but it has Live Aid, and he has his characters. He made up a character that's a rock star that's playing at Live Aid, and a kid that was his son. I'm going to give the story away, but it's a pretty cool story. I only read half of it, and then I wrote the foreword because they wanted me to write about Live Aid and my experience with it. And but now I'm digging into finishing the book, and I really enjoy it. I think anybody who likes reading, fiction will enjoy the book, and if they know about Live Aid and stuff, they'll like it even more.
Absolutely. I will have to work on that.
That's it.
Like I said, I will share the links and all to grab that book.
It's my first forward.
There you go. You mentioned about the things picking up overseas. You had singles in Europe and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's the biggest difference? Obviously, when you play home in the Philadelphia area or anywhere in the States, it's one thing.
Yeah.
Especially Philly. But what is it like with the fan base overseas? I know you guys play a lot in Sweden. Eric's wife's from Swedish, and you're playing Europe, Germany, all these things. What is that fan base like, and the big difference there?
Yeah, I think, and listen, every country over there is different. Every country has their, we've been going to Europe for years. It's the first year that we've ever played in Greece. We played in Athens this year, the audience was just great. No, I can never use a word like subdued in Europe, because audiences in Europe, they're aggressive, man. They like having a good time. They're dancing. They like to show their enthusiasm for the music. So they're like that. But Germany's a different level. Like when the Hooters play in Germany, like in Eastern Germany, it's like, holy shit. It's the audience is just, I mean, if we could get them on stage with us, we would. They're just so into it. They know all the songs. They know all the lyrics. They know all the, they just know about the band. So it's always a rush. And, when we're touring in Europe, sometimes you could be playing in parts of, like, say we're in Germany and then we go over to Denmark, or we go to Sweden, or we go to, or wherever we're going. A lot of times, as much as we like those countries, we're always saying, man, I can't wait to get back to Germany, because it's just like the audiences there they're just so enthusiastic about what we do, and they've been amazing for so many years. Now, I'm not discounting, Sweden and Finland and stuff. We haven't been to Finland in years. I would love to get back there to play because of my roots, but it really was very fortunate for us and smart that we went over to play when we were, because we went to build that market over there when we were already doing great here. And we kind of looked at it like we made it, you're like, why are we going over there when we're playing, we're starting to play arenas. Why are we going over there? And well, that's because maybe, audiences get fickle. And so you need an audience. So it was really the smartest thing we ever did, because we're going to go tour in 2027 if God willing. I just had my knee replaced, by the way.
How you feeling?
Brand new knee. I feel great. It's a little banged up today. I was moving some gear yesterday, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I played a show. I played Pierre's Memorial, and which I'll tell you about before the end of the podcast. I want to let you know about some stuff that I'm doing with a recording that we got from that. But so I played the show within the pocket, and with the Hooters. I think it was 5 weeks after I had my knee replaced. I don't know where I found the strength or the will, but I think it had something to do with Pierre.
Was this
like,
the memorial show you just did? Okay.
Yeah, and I felt great. It sounded great, and we recorded it. So I'm hoping to maybe put some of that out. But it was. We're going to go back to Europe in 2027. A lot depends because we're all getting up there on our health and how we're feeling, because it's a grind when you go out. You're always in a different city the next day you travel, but we love it so much. And while people are still asking for us to go back to play, we're going to do it. And they just announced that we're going to be playing the WMMR barbecue.
I was going to beat me to the punch.
May 9th. They're going to do that too. So, there's a lot of cool stuff coming, and it's just a matter of just staying healthy enough to be able to do it. I don't want to get any more replacements. Now I've already had my hip, I have my knee, but this is it for a bit.
That's good. Well, speaking of the MM barbecue, we're taping this on the 6th here.
Yeah.
It was announced officially yesterday morning.
Yeah.
It's going to be at the Freedom Mortgage Pavilion. You're going to be playing with guys like Godsmack, Alice Cooper, Everclear, and they'll have the Preston Steve side stage. These shows are usually a good time if you can get out there if you're in the area.
Yeah.
The Hooters will be playing. So
Alice is an old friend of mine. I recorded. I'm the drummer on The Last Temptation, the album that he did with Lost in America. It's me, Stolen Prayer. I'm the drummer on that album. So we're old friends. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. And being that he plays right after us, we'll be able to hang a bit. That's really cool.
Hey, you know what? And I say this as great as Alice is. The thing that I always tell people about his current band lineup, at least for the past several years, Nita Strauss.
Oh, I'm looking forward to meeting her.
Have you ever seen her play, though?
Well, I watch because Glenn Sobel's a friend of mine. His drummer is a friend of mine, and he's a beast. And I heard she's killer. I heard she's a monster.
Oh
right?
Look her up.
I will.
Look her up and watch. And I've seen her do other events like the Super Bowl and things like that.
Oh, cool.
There is the video you will see online. Don't do her justice.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, she is that good.
Wow.
But I'm hoping I'll be able to come see you guys.
Well, I hope you do too, man. Come say hello. If you come, please come say hello.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can. Get me introduced to do that. But
I'll do that. Hey, so regards to Pierre's memorial, we sold out in 3 minutes.
Oh, it was unbelievable how quick that went.
It was incredible. And so they did a pay-per-view and they recorded everything and everybody was on their A game. So I have the master recordings of ITP, and I was so happy how Adam Weiner, Richard, Beru Revue, Bob Beru and Greg and Steve from Smash Palace. Everybody was just crushing it. Tommy Conwell. So I have a great recording of the band that I'm working on that I'd like to put out. ITP Live at the Fillmore. That sounds pretty cool, huh?
It does. Fillmore is another one of those legendary spots in the region.
I grew up on, there was a record I loved called Humble Pie Live at the Fillmore. So when we did this and I got these recordings, I'm going, I've always had a dream to do that. So I'm working on it.
There's I have a version of, I believe it's Werewolves in London by the gentleman you mentioned before.
Yeah, cool.
And Warren Zevon, I was having a brain fart there.
Yeah.
And it was live from the Fillmore. So
yeah. Warren was great. Warren was just an amazing dude. And came that close to working with Warren, which I didn't even know about until I read Anita Gevinson's book, that he was trying to put a session together, Eric Robb and myself, and it came close to happening, but didn't happen, which would have been a guess because I was such a fan of his. That Werewolves in London is just such a great record. Johnny Strikes Up the Band, Lawyers, Guns, and Money. That's an awesome album, man. Still to this day. Great record.
We've actually mentioned it a few times, In the Pocket. And
yes.
In the Pocket, for the folks who aren't familiar, which I've actually shared with fans during live
Yeah.
streams and different things.
Oh, cool.
Like different videos you guys have done and
Yeah.
such, just to say, to promote Philadelphia music and what you guys do and everything else like that. But
Right.
In the Pocket celebrates Philly's rich musical heritage with
It does.
such a rotating all-star lineup. Some
Yeah.
we talked about, like a Richard Bush from the A's,
Yeah,
Tommy
yeah.
Conwell, and
Yeah.
the Young Rumblers. You
Yeah.
got Kenny Aaronson, a
Yeah.
former member of Dylan and Joan Jett's band, and
Yeah.
Steve Butler,
Yeah.
Wally Smith, all these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So, what was it like, and where did the idea come for putting In the
Well,
Pocket together?
It's funny because when I moved back to Philly, I was really struck by how much Philly changed. It was right after Phillies won the World Series in 98? Was it?
No,
they won-
2008. 2008.
2000. I'm sorry, 2008. Yeah, when I'm making it really old. So when we won that World Series, I know I attribute it to that because that was going on. But listen, when I was living here, I lived on 24th and Spruce Street, and when you walk through Rittenhouse Square, it was almost like at nighttime everything seemed to go dark. In a sense that, the restaurants weren't, like, people weren't eating out. Now the tables are outside. You go by Park Rouge. It was just this vibrant vibe going on. And I'm walking through Rittenhouse Square with my wife when I came back. I said, this place is different. It's like, I just couldn't believe how it just felt like people were celebrating the culture, and the music needed to be celebrated. So we started talking about how we could create a project, and it might have been Dallin's idea, just to come up with ITP, a way that we could invite musicians that I normally don't work with. Let's think about it. So this is 2008, the internet, it was like things were just still kind of ramping up with, you hear music, but you weren't really always. It wasn't that as easy to read liner notes as it was back in the day to find out who was doing what on the album. So when we started doing In the Pocket, for instance, one of the early songs we did was a Todd Rundgren song called Open My Eyes. Mm-hmm. And I invited
another Philly guy.
Yeah, Todd, right? Nas. So that was a Nas song. So I invited a couple guys from the Hooters. I invited Rick DeFonso from the A's. Jeffrey Gaines, my friend Bill Whitman played bass, Rob played keyboards, and we recorded this song and we filmed it, and we told a little story of the song, how Todd did it. Each one of the guys were highlighted, and it was like the beginning of how we were going to start approaching I hope to do more. So, I think we've done 24 songs already. And and the cast has changed and revolved over the years. Recently, John Fay has gotten involved. Tangeray Hayward has gotten involved. Jeffrey Washington, of course, Steve Butler. But it's like different people have come and contributed. Adam Weiner from Loca Cunny just did our last recording. Was a song called "Sally Saying Something" by Billy Horner, which was a hit. I guess I remember I thought it was like a #1 hit across the country, but I don't think it was. But it was a song I heard every day on IBG or WFIL, and it really, influenced me as a listener and a musician. So, we recorded that, and we give a little history lesson on the song. So every song. So if you go to songsinthepocket.org, you can look up all the stuff. We recorded some songs from Philly International, Backstabbers. We did even do a great version of Disco Inferno with Graham Alexander, our Fran Smith's son, singing a song. But that's it in a nutshell. It's like we are. You put it best. We pay homage to and honor the songs that came out of Philadelphia, and I get to play with the musicians that when you're in a band, you're like in a family. So it was really nice to do In the Pocket, which has been together coming up on. This will be going into our 16th year. Next time we play in the summer, it'll be 16 years, and the band keeps on growing and getting better, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a labor of love, and if you haven't checked it out, go check it out.
I will have a link for that on all versions of this as well.
Great.
But obviously, I'm a little biased, and I know this will show, but I don't care. But I love your version, In the Pockets version of Beat Up Guitar.
Oh, thank you. With Jim Bosia.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I'll put that documentary video as well.
Oh, please put it in. Yeah, Bosia. Bosia. Look, I mean, listen. I could go. We could do a podcast for 8 hours about the guys that are in the pocket. Jim Bosia's a beast. Yeah. I mean, an absolute monster, and he crushes that. I mean, he's one of the greatest. That guy's like one of the greatest singers in America, man. Like, I don't care. I've heard a lot of singers. That guy sings with more soul, and it's come so easy to him. And he does it, and he's got so much passion for his instrument. He's great. Yeah, thank you. I love that version myself, too. It's great. Look, I love the Hooters version of it. It's great. They wrote the song, and we play it. But Jim crushes it. And even Eric will tell you he crushes it. You know,
yeah, there's just something different with that.
Because, yeah. It's like Jimmy Barnes walks in the room. He's just so good.
Yeah, and I recorded a version too of it.
Oh, cool.
Not that I'm Eric or anything like that, but I recorded a mandolin version of.
Send it to me. I'd love to hear it, John.
It's similar to
to hear it.
It's similar to what Eric did with his when you guys were doing that. Cool. Footage and all. So it's
cool.
Really close. I'd love
to check it out. I'd love to check it out. Check it out.
Yeah, I know people go, it sounds too similar, but you know what I mean? It works.
It works. It was good. People like it. It's good. Look, our version's similar too. It just has some nuances. You got Bosia, who has that like incredible, soulful, raspy voice going that sometimes he's Rod Stewart and sometimes he's, Jimmy Barnes. And he's amazing. He's really amazing.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, we just entered 2026.
Yeah.
What you mentioned, ITP is going to be playing in the summer and a couple other things. What do you got coming up that you can talk about?
Well, there's a couple of live records that I want to work on. There's a couple tracks that I like to do. There's this great song by an artist named Keith that has a song back in the day called 98.6 that I'd love to be able to record that. And there's a Phillies international song that I like to do. But I'll leave that for a surprise that I'd like to get my buddy. I'm going to just leave that as a surprise because I got somebody that's going to sing. It's going to be great. But we're going to record a couple tracks like I do like to have done before the spring. And I hope ITP will be out playing a little more than we do because the Hooters will not tour in Europe this summer. So it leaves me open to doing some shows. So if any promoters out there want to book ITP, call us.
All right. David, thank you so much for the time, sir.
Jonathan, it was a real pleasure, man. It was fun talking to you, man.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Listen, man, you have a wonderful day, brother.
I will. Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
Hey there, it's Alan Troutman, Tarman from Return of the Living Dead, and if there's anybody you should listen to, it's me about listening to Crazy Train Radio. Go do it. Go away. Do it now.